Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We do have some people still jumping in, but we're going to go ahead and get going here. My name is Charlie Hersman. I use he, him pronouns. I am here with Oregon Pride in Business. I am the membership committee chair. And every once in a while, I get pulled in to facilitate one of our Thrive sessions. So really, really excited about today's as somebody who is a very outgoing introvert and kind of needs that recharge time to look as extroverted as people think I am. So super excited. I'm just going to kind of be here hanging out. If you have questions, you want to drop them in chat. I will be keeping an eye on chat to make sure that those are getting answered. But at this point, I don't want to take any more time. So Nedra, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you to get started.
Great. Thank you, Charlie. Actually, before we get started, I'd like to know who's out there because we can get to know you a little bit better. And I know since a lot of you are introverts, I'm not going to ask you to talk too much, but if you put your name and your business in the chat, I think that would be great just to kind of get a sense of, and maybe talk a little bit about your business, like a sentence, so I know, because sometimes the name of your business will not give me enough information, and I'll be like, I have no idea what you do, and I don't want to mess it up. So yeah, please give me a minute to share with you, and I'll set up my slides while you do that. So. Okay, let's see who's in the group here. All right. Got Jess from Big Rocks Organizing, Thea from Enos Gresham Area Chamber of Commerce, Rachel with Abbott and Associates. They're a women-owned staffing firm. Brandon Gillis, he is a collaboration facilitator and coach. Crystal is the founder of Ricotta Coffee, a mobile coffee cart serving Philippine-grown coffee. Ooh, nice. And of course, Charlie Hersman, our facilitator, Break Free Technology Consulting here in Portland. Okay, great. All right, well, welcome everyone. I have not done a talk on this per se. I've talked to my clients and I've talked about this in my newsletter and my content, but I haven't done an official talk on it. So you're my guinea pig. So let me know about the feedback and let me know how I can improve on it, because it's always, it's always interesting the first time as you learn things. And then we also have Caleb with Harmony and Balance Bodyworks. So thanks all for being here. So as a teeny bit about myself, I help introverted businesses, especially service-based businesses, solve their businesses and marketing challenges. And especially as an introvert, it is tricky to be in this loud arena, especially on social media right now, and find your place. So I definitely help people figure that out. I've owned multiple businesses over the years, including a web design business for 15 years. I even had a product-based business at one point, so I definitely can speak to different aspects. I am an instructor at many different colleges right now, which is pretty fun, and teaching business and marketing classes. And when I'm not teaching and not working with clients, I'm out in nature. In fact, I have this really wonderful window where I can hear all the birds outside. I have a neighbor who is a bird lover, so I get to hear and see all the birds he's feeding. And I even have my little app out there trying to identify the birds. It's a fun little game I play every day. And actually, full disclosure, I am not an introvert. I'm an ambivert. I've taken multiple assessments. And funny enough, it's hard to get, I don't lean introvert, I don't lean extrovert. I'm right in the middle. I actually married him. My husband's right in the middle. It's nice to find people who are in the middle too, because sometimes the role's not black and white. And I'm sure some of you lean one little bit, you're on the scale. You're not exactly completely introverted. Well, we can talk about that today a little bit too, but I think that helps kind of, set the tone for where I'm coming from. And good. Brandon's in the middle, and you can understand both sides. And sometimes I think for so many years, I thought I was introverted. I took the Myers-Briggs and was convinced. And then as I matured and got older, I realized, oh, I actually just need to be around the right people. And I open up, especially even talking like this. We actually realized I was not afraid of it. I enjoyed it once I had the tools. I did Toastmasters. that really made a difference. I recommend if any of you fear public speaking, join a Toastmasters. They're wonderful people. I joined one probably the mid 2000s and got my certification and just felt like I was unstoppable. I could handle all kinds of terrain after that. So what we're going to talk about today is kind of defining what networking means, because that's a pretty big term. That means a lot of different things to a lot of people. Preparing and navigating networking events with confidence is something I still struggle with, and hopefully all my research and studying can help you all. And I'm sure I'm curious if you have any thoughts on any of this too. And then the next thing, after networking events is one-on-one conversations, which is where introverts shine. And that can be like your best place to have the most meaningful conversations, not the small talk, right? And then, networking also includes online presence. So we'll talk a little bit about that and see what that involves as well. Because I think that there's a lot of really challenging feelings around that for introverts. And the way I teach is I'm pretty open. So if you have any questions, I'll be checking the chat and to see if I can answer it. I don't mind answering it as I talk. If you want to speak up, great. I imagine a lot of you may not be very comfortable doing that if you're introverted, which I understand is kind of meta, right? But if you do want to talk, I'm down with that. It's cool. You don't have to save your questions to the end, but we will have time for questions probably. So I want to start with Susan Cain. How many of you, by raising hands or just, have read Susan Cain's book, Quiet? Okay, I see one. Oh my gosh. Okay. Your homework after this is to go read that book. Seriously, it's a book that kind of blew my mind. It helped me understand I have so many introverted friends and even my own tendencies to help me understand, oh, this is it. Like, and there's one part of the book where there's this one gentleman who gives these big talks and I think he's like a professor. And then he has to absolutely, after the big talks, go hide out in this hidey hole and not talk to anyone. And that is strict rules. And some people want to talk to him after his talks and interact. He's like, no, I can't do that. This is all you get. And it was very, very interesting. So anyway, Susan Cain, she's got a Substack that's pretty interesting. And I think she's written a few other books. So as an introvert, you really got to read her stuff. It's kind of mind blowing, but I like this quote. Our culture is biased against quiet and reserved people, but introverts are responsible for some of humanity's greatest achievements. And I absolutely know that's true for how many amazing introverts I know out there in the world. So let's play a little game. What are the superpowers of introverted people? I want you to throw your ideas in the chat, or if you feel brave enough, say it out loud. But let me know what you think are the superpowers of introverted people. Let's get that going first before we talk about networking. All right. Brandon says the introvert really comes out of me when it comes time to speak about my service and value. Great. I love that. Intuition, empathy, what Thea says, Rachel's listening skills, Thea observation. These are great. There's probably more. Anyone want to throw some other ideas into the chat? That's the challenge with asking introverts to do things. Sometimes it's too pressing, so it's okay. I will not force. So anyway, I came up with a whole list of things. Oh wait, I think somebody else responded. Ooh, introspection, Caleb said. I love that. And then intentional responses take time to think before I share. That's Barcata coffee. And then Rachel's, yes, intention. Yeah, good. Okay, good. You're starting to see some connection, overlap. These are great. So I just kind of did a little summary of what I think, what I've seen, and people I know, and even a little bit of myself. I think some things kind of even overlap or kind of interject or intersperse with each other. And I think the self-reflective is a really big one that people don't. I don't think our society really understands and even gives time for right now. It's very much like, I need to know now, and it's very, very much like now. We need to make decisions now. That kind of pressure. Enjoying writing. I don't think that's everyone, but I think I've noticed so many introverts I know really enjoy the process of writing emails or writing blog posts or having a Substack or having an outlet for writing because they can really express themselves. I think creative and problem solving go together. I love when I work with people that lean to be a little bit more introverted. they'll come up with most amazing ideas I never would have thought of when I, let's get to ask them when I'm trying to figure something out. And then taking time for decisions, like some of you mentioned. Yeah. And that's gonna be a really great skill, especially if you're with a group of people or a partner that wants to rush into something. It kind of is the yin and yang to help you balance that out and not feel like you're um, you know, making decisions too quickly. That's something that's so hard in our society right now. It's such a, everything has to be now. I blame Amazon, right? All this delivery packaging. I have a 14-year-old, and she doesn't know that things take time sometimes to come to actually. They should take like a week or two to arrive, not days. So I think our society is definitely a little too rushed. Gotta slow down. All right. So when I say networking, do you think like, all these crowded people, like people you don't know, strangers, small talk, you start sweating, you're just like, oh, I don't want to go and beat these people. I'd rather just turn around and go home. And I know that I've walked into some groups, especially in person, right? And just be like, oh my God, this actually happened to me just last year. And I was just had to force myself because I actually was gonna be the speaker there and try to mingle with people. And sometimes I fail miserably, and I'll kind of get into some of that, the why I think that happens, and it's so rough, right? It's we can all relate with that. Rachel says networking can feel very transactional, which makes me uncomfortable. Yeah, I can. And then Crystal's like, I went to a networking event 2 weeks ago and just wandered around until someone adopted me into the chatter. Yeah, yeah, that was kind of what happened. Like I went to this one last year and you just kind of thrown to the wolves and there was just like these little packs of people and there was nobody welcoming me, nobody welcoming anybody. And I just was like, this is broken. We got to do better. So, there's not every networking group fits everybody. So we'll talk more about that. So I think when it comes to just networking groups in general, we're just going to focus on that for the first part of this section. It's all about quality, not quantity. And as introverts, you want to be very protective of your energy. Your energy is so precious. And I know so many people that lean that way to be very, kind of almost like the tank in a car. It's like how many meetings can you go to? How many things can happen in one day before you're like, you need your quiet time. You need to refill your cup. You need to refill yourself, whatever that looks like. If it's just sitting there reading a book or just listening to music or a podcast. You can't just go to all these different meetings and do your work and just expect yourself to be functioning. So I think it's looking at your calendar, being very very protective is important. And that can be hard to say no, and that's almost like working on your boundary setting, which is a whole different talk, right? But that kind of goes in line with that. And then choosing who you spend the time with, being willing to say no to people that are going to be very dominant conversationalists that will not let you speak. I've actually had to kind of cut a few people out of my life that just haven't been respectful of that, and just even me as an ambivert, sometimes they just throw themselves in the conversation, and I never have a chance to talk. Or even some clients haven't been a good fit because they won't even let me talk to share to coach and help them. It's like, hey, wait a second, let's where's the balance here? So I think it's really important to when you kind of meet someone, kind of filter them out. Like, is this somebody I can continue to be benefit from them, or are they just gonna kind of suck the time away from me, suck my energy? And then I think you could agree with this, and tell me if you don't, but spending time building deeper relationships with a smaller number of people usually feels pretty good. And I think that a lot of people forget that sometimes even starting to network within the people instead of trying to meet new people can be a lot easier. And you're like, how does that happen? I'll get more into that later. But I think having that history with people and even just reaching out to have that one-on-one conversation every so often can be really powerful. I actually took a course on that about a year ago. It was really helpful too. And they gave you like conversation starters, all kinds of things. There's definitely some help out there for that kind of thing. So not all networking groups are the same. I'm sure you would agree with me. And what's really interesting, there's been a huge evolution of networking groups in particular, because there's the before COVID and after COVID. So, you know, because I used to go to so many in-person ones into like late 2010s. You know, during my web design business, I was working with lots and lots of lawyers. So they all had these in-person networking events I needed to attend to. And it was pretty exhausting sometimes, but luckily I had some strategies that helped keep me in tow. But then 2020 happened, right? And then we all had to stay at home, and then the whole Zoom networking became a thing. And it's funny, actually, I'd been exposed to that before back in 2018. There was a networking group I was part of, and the leader was actually having us meet hybrid, like on Zoom and in person. It was really cool and very ahead of its time. And I never had really experienced that before, but it was really well done. And actually, some of those women I met on that group I've worked with today, and has been really great. So you never know. But it was interesting to see all these different like groups that were on in person try to do it online, and some failed, and some succeeded. Some were really great and have taken off. And there's been some national groups that have grown that way virtually. I'd be curious, you know, I'll ask you later if you have some things you want to share on that. But uh, there's actually been some online groups I actually had success with. So, but it's interesting how I've noticed just here in Portland, we don't really have like a lot of these like national virtual groups are East Coast and maybe Central, but they're not really taken off on the West Coast as much. So I've actually, so the challenge is to try to for some of these online groups is the time. Like some of them start like as early as 6 a.m. our time, you know, 9 a.m. East Coast. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm not an early person, so that is hard for me. So that's just not, it's just not a, especially like waking up and like trying to be like on at 6 a.m. is not something I can do. I don't, maybe some of you can pull it off, but I don't think it was worth it. So, let's go check the chat real quick. Crystal says, I went to a networking event 2 weeks ago and just wandered around till, oh wait, I'm sorry, I just read that one earlier. Brandon Giles, yeah, the best guardrail for me on this lately, I can only catch up every time we meet with so many people. I've seen a lot of online groups work as well as async rather than through sessions. Yeah, that is actually, I love that you brought that up. There's definitely, I think some people use Slack or different Discord. There's all kinds of like places where there's community built online that you can talk that way, which could be really interesting as well. So it doesn't have to be just like on at the same time. I think having networking that's structured can be like so important. I went to this, I used to attend NABO, which was the National Association of Women's in Business. And I attended that for a few years before the pandemic. And what was really great about it is they'd have it during lunch, but they have this like table set up before the speaker, and you'd have like little conversation pieces, like questions, and there'd usually be a leader that would help guide it on the table before the speaker, and then even the same thing after the speaker. And I met so many wonderful people that way, and actually ended up working with some of them later. And I love that it wasn't just like, there was actually like structure and guidance, and they were always really thoughtful questions, and you know, definitely got some laughs, and it was um, the kid does have Discord. Nice, great. If any of you don't know what Discord is, it's this wonderful, very private um, type of app that lets you create community. Um, my husband's been using it for a long time. He like plays board games, and what I've been using it for recently is actually I'm part of a bird club, and it's like really great little channels on there, and you can talk about birds that you've seen or upcoming events to go hang out and see birds. I mean, you know, birding's gotten so big over the last few years, it's crazy, but it's all private. There's no ads. People are respectful. Usually someone moderating it. But it's almost kind of like the old internet where it's not, you don't have like Meta and all these other people's fingers in it. It's kind of cool. So I think we're going to see a lot more of these kinds of communities that are very specific around a topic or a need for people. And you just hang out in those versus like the meta streams and Facebook and all that. So it's an exciting time to be in digital marketing and media and all that to see what's happening. But I think networking, having being structured, is so important. And so, which leads me to tell you a story. I actually started my own networking group years ago, and let me kind of give you some like background and I'm not telling you this is the point of the story is not to tell you to start your own, but just to think about what you want and that'll help you find what maybe if you're looking for something. So this was let's go back to 2016. I was definitely in my web design business then, and I had been trying to find a networking group that I thought would be great to join. And so but I didn't was really struggling. I wasn't finding ones I liked very much. And I was just coming back from one. I went to one that was like at 7 a.m. I had to drive far all across town. I had to get up really early again. I'm not an early morning person, as you can tell. And so I go to this networking event, and there was one of those where you had to pay money if you don't have anybody to share a lead. And it drove me crazy. And people were really salesy. I was very extroverted, dominated, and I was not happy. And I came home all grumbly, and I was telling my husband, I'm like, that's the last networking group I want to go to. I hated it. And he's like, well, stop complaining and create your own. I'm sick of hearing you talk about it. I'm like, oh, yeah, he has a good point. Maybe I should do my own. And, I was really, really at my wit's end. And so I remember I just distinctly remember that morning going, oh, what would that look like? And I was like, well, this was 2016. There had to be in person. Online wasn't really an option back then. So I thought about using like a meetup as a platform because that was, there was definitely a lot more meetups happening back then through that platform. It's pretty affordable. And I just started inviting all these women because I just wanted to keep it women based. It was just easier to manage. And just all these women in business I knew. And then I'm like, I need to find a place to host it. And at that time, I was familiar with Tabor Space. I don't know if you know about it over off of 55th and Southeast Belmont. It's this old church they've restructured, and now they have like spaces you can rent. It's a really cool place to meet up for coffee too. There's a little cafe in it. There was a pretty affordable space I could rent. And then I wanted to make sure I had like drinks and food because how many times you go to a networking event, there's nothing. You're like starving or thirsty. It's gross. And so I'm like, okay, here's my checklist. And then I realized, oh, well, if I'm going to be renting a room and using Meetup and providing drinks and food, I need to charge for this. And I think that really makes a difference too, depending on if it's free or if they're charging a fee. I noticed that the quality of people can change. It depends on people. Usually come if they have a little bit skin in the game, right? So I ended up creating a really clear structure. Is one of the biggest gripes I've had with networking groups is the speaker taking up all the time, so I can't even really meet people. And then I meet people that it's just so random. It's like I don't even know what's going on. So I had a very clear structure. I had a topic per session. We meet like the first Wednesday of the month. And then I have little questions for each of these topics. And I have people meet in groups, like 2 or 3 people, for 10 minutes and on a topic, and then on a question, and then they just rotate. And then they rotate. So everyone gets to meet everyone a little bit and talk. And then at the end, we kind of have like a group discussion about the topic. And, I met some of the most amazing people this way. And it was a lot of work. And I didn't mind it though, because I got exposed to all these great people, and I never really had a very big group. I think maybe at the most was 10, so it's kind of ideal. And I started noticing a trend. I'm like, oh, I have all my introverted business friends that are coming to these folks in these groups, and oh, okay, this is. And I was able to sustain it until 2020, and then of course we went online. It still kept going, and then around 2021, I realized, this is a lot of work, and I had a good run. I think it might be time to leave while it's on a good note, and that's when I kind of closed it down. But anyway, why I'm telling you the story is because I want you to think about what are some aspects of what makes you probably attended other networking groups. What of those that made you happy? Like, was it the structure of networking? Was there an activity? Was there something? Because you want to look for those when you find um, when you're looking for a different group to join. That's so important to have some kind of like synergy or structure or something like that. And Crystal says, after the big scary networking event I went to, I have been thinking about starting smaller, more structured networking for ND folks. I don't know how to start as an ND introvert, so I'm excited to hear about this. Yeah, I mean, you know, I've also would encourage you to and this has happened with a lot of my colleagues, starting up something around just your colleagues. Like sometimes people that are very similar work to you, but isn't competitive, you can just have your own meetup on a regular basis, and it could be very organic, and it doesn't have to be that many people. But I've known interior designers and web designers and all kinds of folks like that create these like groups, and then they sometimes they'll do trainings with each other, and it also helps with the loneliness of being a business owner. It can be kind of lonely out there, and you're just kind of doing your own thing. So I think it's good to redefine the idea of like what does a networking group mean, and what you want out of it. And if you feel like you can take on a little bit of leadership, you can even start like a small version of this or something like that, or see if there's someone else out there that feels the same way as you and do it together. You don't have to do it by yourself. I guarantee there's probably other people out there that are just feeling like you are, and want things different. So just wanted to plant that seed as something to think about. And I am really glad I had that experience and started it up. And I'm glad my husband called me out and said, do your own thing. And sometimes that's the right answer. And I think I grew my list to about over 200 and some women. But again, it was only about like 5 to 10 showing up each time, which was perfect. I didn't want it to be big. That would have defeated the whole purpose. So, really I think once you have like your focus on what your intentions are and what you want to accomplish, it can be a lot easier. So, managing your energy, that's a really, really important part of being, like, I want to say, honoring yourself as an introvert. I think that's very, very important. So, again, it's all about how many, it's about like which ones, being very selective. Like, do you want to attend maybe 1 to 2 events a month? Doesn't that sound a lot easier than 5? And, maybe if you do those, you're very intentional about what you walk into. I think, if you can look at a group meetup and see who's on the list, who's attending. Is it even people that could refer you? Is it people that you want to do business with? I mean, it's really important you don't waste your time either. It's nothing worse than walking into a group and you're like, oh, this is not what I thought. It's so frustrating, right? So I think doing a little research ahead of time, which introverts are good at, and figuring out, oh, is this really what's good for me, and this going to meet my needs? And then one tip I've gotten from other people is, and I've done this myself, is especially if it's maybe a membership. Well, two points. One is if it's something that is paid for. Usually, a group will let you attend 1 to 2 times for free to let you try it out. So that takes the pressure off and gives you a chance to see if this is something you want to commit to. Now, an alternative to that too is if you do start joining that group, you could start volunteering maybe to get discounted membership prices. Or, I mean, that's one motivation, but the other one could be just to have a job to make it easier to meet people. And so I've known people to be like the greeter for a lot of these things. And a lot of times it's just like gives them something to do. They kind of meet people, and it just takes the pressure off of like the mingling, right? Because that actually can drive you crazy. And or there's other leadership jobs too, but I think what also helps is if you can be part of this kind of volunteer team, you get there early, get to know more people like that are involved in the leadership of the group. That can be really helpful. And then maybe even be part of a subgroup. Like I did that for a while. I was part of a women's business group, probably in the oh gosh, was that around 2013? I actually joined a subgroup and did some volunteer PSU. Oh, it was so wonderful. And I got to just hang out with these 4 women and get to know them. And it was really wonderful. And these more established group networking membership groups that have these like subcommittees can be like exactly where you want to be hanging out, because then it takes the pressure off of getting to know everyone. But maybe there's something you're interested in. Maybe it's philanthropic or volunteering or giving back to something. I think that can feel really good, and then it aligns with your values, and then it doesn't feel like work, but then you're meeting people that also care about what you do. Brandon says, I don't always feel extroverted in events. That's why I run so many. When I have a job, I'm so much more confident. Exactly. Thanks for sharing that. That is so true. And it's good to keep that in mind, that when you when you have something to focus on, it takes the pressure off. Oh, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm supposed to be meeting this person, or oh, I'm supposed to be making small talk. No, actually, you have something with purpose, so you don't have to worry about the small talk. It's already kind of taken care for you. All right, so you might hate or love this, but I think it's a good time to, I don't want to just be talking to you the whole time. So I asked them if I could break you into breakout rooms, and I'm gonna do it like I'm gonna make it very much like a one-on-one for just a few minutes. But I want you to have a chance to talk to each other. And again, you may feel like this is crazy, but I think this is an important part of like doing presentations and workshops. So and you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, but I think it'd be a fun experiment. So like, give me a minute to like set up the breakout rooms since we have, um, let's see, we have a few people attending. So we'll do about five. We'll just do four because I'm probably gonna stay out. But let's see. Yeah, just gonna be 2 to 3 people per room. So it'll be intimate, which is good. That's you don't want a lot of people. So yeah, just talk about your favorite networking groups, maybe why, what was a aspect of that, and then we'll come back and if you feel comfortable talking out loud, great. If you want to just add in the chat, that's fine too. Let me just check here. Okay, awesome. Okay, I'm gonna create them, and then all right, and then here you go. And then I'll give you about 5 minutes. It'll be very brief. Yeah, so that way, if you're not into this, you won't be hating me. And I'll give you a warning, about 1 minute warning or so. Okay, here you go. Crystal, do you want to join a room or are you? Oh.
Record progress.
All right, folks are coming back. Hopefully that was fun and you don't hate me because I know sometimes people it's like small talk. Hopefully that was more meaningful and you're with other people that are like you. Did anybody have any insights or things they want to share in their breakout room? And if you feel like you want to put in the chat, that's fine too.
I mean, I guess I'll go.
Yeah.
I've always found that the ORPIV events are some of the easiest industry events to go to because it's a very low pressure atmosphere and you get to kind of talk to people, which is really nice. Whereas some of the other ones that I've attended are a little more high pressure and very quick and on your feet kind of thing, which, you know, being a little more on the introverted side is very difficult to do.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, Dominic. Thank you for sharing that. You know, it's they're not all the same, so it's really good to be able to parse out what, you know, the pieces you like and try to have more of that in your life and then don't feel like you're pressured to do these high sales, high, you know, really extroverted, pressurized places that are not your space. You know, I think I spent pressure. So, all right. Anybody else? I actually making my slides back up here. Just a second here. All right. Yeah, a few more things to cover. So feel free to, again, throw ideas in the chat if you want. So the next, you know, the biggest thing, right? The whole point of going to networking events is to have more of these like conversational, more deeper, meaningful relationships, right? And or conversations. So I think just some pointers here that I just want to share that what I've learned. And I think one thing that, you know, if you do meet some people you want to talk to after these networking events is making sure you have a calendar that's easier to sync up, you know, having something like it's called Calendly. I'll put in the chat. It's been a godsend for me for years and helps me connect with people that want to just maybe be referral partners or, you know, see if we can do business together, that type of thing. Yes. Oh yeah, it gives the good stuff in the chat. Caleb's like, return on the investment of time and energy seems to be a common issue. Why am I here? Absolutely. ROI is so important. And then Charlie was like, ooh, vampires. I definitely met people who suck the energy out of me and don't appear to be aware of it. Yeah, yeah, I got some stories to tell there too, right? So I think having an easy way to schedule your time and also making sure you block off time for these, you know, maybe it's just 2 a month, you know, and deciding if it's like, you know, 30 minutes to an hour, it's really up to you. You know, it's your time is precious.
Oh, it looks like we have lost Nedra, so I'm going to keep an eye on the participants and let her back in when she gets here.
I was starting to think it was my connection.
I've been messaging Brandon because I was having some weird issues, which I think partly was my connection, but I would love to hear more about tools. So we talked about Calendly. If people want to share, we can continue chatting until Nedra gets back. What are some tools that you found that made connecting with people easier for you?
I mentioned in the chat that Google has the same features as Calendly if you create an appointment. And that discovering that made it much easier for me to adopt it because Calendly always felt scary and hard and expensive to get the features I wanted. And this was just an easy first step for me.
Yeah, that's a good point. Calendly can be pricey to begin. It looks like we have Nedra back. So Nedra, we were just kind of expanding on the Calendly concept. What are some tools that we have found that's helped? But I'm going
Good.
to give that back over to you. I'll make you host again.
Great.
And
Okay.
carry on.
Thanks. All right, let me get back to my slides. Hold on a second. Yeah, so I think I was just saying, like, it's just good to make sure you have time set aside because it's important to have these one-on-one conversations. You know, that's how you get to know people. That's the best, one of the secret, spaces of introverts is when they get to have really true meaningful conversations. And I've had so many with people, and that's where I feel like I don't know, I feel like I haven't really lived a day if I haven't had a deep meaningful conversation with somebody like that. It's a great day when I have a few of those. It's a really awesome day if I just at least can have one with somebody, right? So you want to make sure you block time on your calendar and make it easy to do this, but also it's like a fine line of setting a boundary, making sure you don't open yourself too big. And then like Charlie said earlier, yeah, I think it's important to be careful of the vampires. Don't open yourself up to people that seem to be not a good fit for you. Don't feel like you have to say yes to everybody. I think that's something I've had to learn the hard way. And use your best filter. Yes, it might be a good client, or yes, it might. But is it out? Does that? Um,
All right. Well, I wasn't planning on facilitating today. But I do want to keep the conversation going. Um, I'm curious what people have done to set their own boundaries and set their own protection. How do you take care of yourself when you know you have to get out there and network? What are tools that you've used?
I mentioned it a little bit earlier in I can only catch up with people, with so many people. And part of that was insane social exercise I've been doing with myself of writing down the people I spend my time with and the things that I do with those people. And like, how much am I having one-on-one time with a person versus seeing them in group settings and different things. And through all that exercise, it's helped me realize how many people are maybe disproportionate relationships that I give a lot of energy to that I don't get a lot back. Or a lot of one-on-one conversations when I'd rather have people get together and have a group dinner or things. Just having it all spread out as a visual in data form has really been effective for me to know where I'm spending my time and make more intentional decisions around that.
I love the idea of writing out, actually laying out what we do. Jess had mentioned meditating before events. That is incredibly powerful. Crystal, getting okay with saying no, that I don't have capacity without feeling like I'm missing out. Yeah, that is huge. Anybody who hasn't, I recommend the book Essentialism. I am not going to remember who it is, but I'll grab that info. Uh, it is all about you are the most powerful when you say no to people. And it's really what Nedra said, like picking those things to focus on. Welcome back. I'm going to give you power
internet
again.
day.
I'm going to give you power
Thanks
again,
for
and then I'm going to.
patient. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm going to go find that book, and I'll drop that in chat. But let's get you back to host.
All
And
right.
you
Third
should
time's
have.
hopefully this works,
We got this. You should have full
Oh
range.
yeah. It's just funny. Okay, hold on. Let me get my slides again, see if this works. Um, there we go. Okay, so I wanted, since we're running out of time, I want to make sure I cover some other things here. So we kind of talked about this a little bit. It sounds like Charlie had some good suggestions about setting boundaries. I'm really curious what book he's going to recommend. So I want to talk about just being an introvert on digital marketing for a minute. You know, I think I found, like, depending on your business, of course, some businesses don't really doesn't work so well, but LinkedIn, if you're a B2B business, can be a really great social media landscape. I think it really works well because you can have more intimate kind of conversations, especially in the DMs. I've really met some great people I've worked with, and met as clients or as referral partners. It just is a lot quieter space in general. It just isn't so loud, and it's not very video driven. It's a lot more writing, and it just, I don't know, there's something about it. I even have like a LinkedIn course I've taught to people, and it's been just really rewarding to see what you can do with it, because it's a world of like newsletters and polling, and it's just different. So I recommend you check out LinkedIn if you haven't in a long time, because I feel like it's got something special for introverts for sure. And then Substack is a really cool place right now. It's growing like leaps and bounds. If you haven't checked it out, it's kind of a really cool, like almost old school blogging platform where you can create newsletters out of that, and you can harness comments and build community that way. Um, I'm seeing a lot of thought leaders and influencers kind of they'll create free content, and they'll actually create like ones under a paywall, or have the community, like the commenting, be under a paywall, and have somebody moderating it, of course. But again, kind of like Discord, like these kind of a quieter um, places where there's no ads, and you're having people that choose to be there. They're not just part of a feed. So it's interesting what's happening. So I think those are some places where I'm seeing a lot more introverts hang out. In fact, I'll show you some examples here in a minute with LinkedIn especially. And don't feel the pressure to be on video. I feel like, right? I'm a marketing person telling you this, and it's true. I don't like being on video that much. And so, just be creative with what you can do. Maybe you need to do voiceover with a video, or maybe just skip the video altogether and just use your words and simple images if you're using Instagram, and use your strengths. Like, I was teaching a business cohort this morning, and one of the things I'm having folks do is do an assessment, doing like something like Clifton Strengths or the Enneagram, or a Myers-Briggs test, to see where are your strengths, and lean into the introverted pieces of you. What do you do well? If you write well, use that as a communication online. Don't beat yourself up that you don't like doing video. It's exhausting and it's not worth it. There's plenty of loud, outspoken people, but you want to connect with people that were like-minded. I mean, the writing could be a really great outlet for you. And I'm a newsletter geek and Substack. I'm on there all the time, and that's my happy place. And so you need to find yours as well, and don't feel like you have this pressure of like doing what everyone else says they have to do. So just giving you permission. So anyway, here's some examples of people I know online that are doing some interesting stuff that are introverts. So Neha Govil, I met her a couple of years ago. She's a really interesting coach, and she just plain out like says, I'm doing Introvert's Guide to Planning. I'm talking about running meetings that don't drain introverts. Like, so much of her content is really aimed at helping people that lean that direction, and how to cope in life. And I don't see Neha on videos. Like, if anything, she posted a video of someone else and commented about it, which I thought was really clever. It's a great kind of workaround, because I don't think she's very comfortable with it either. So it's kind of fun to watch other introverts and see what they do with their own content. Oh, Charlie's like, yeah, I found that I don't want to is such a good indicator about finding a thing I should delegate or just isn't my strength lean into. Super, yep, spot on. I love it. Barry Krugening is also another kind of a coach, like that works with, I think she's worked with lawyers and all the others, women in leadership, but she's definitely, and she calls herself the introvert impact coach. And she'll do polling on LinkedIn. She has a newsletter. I think that's what's such a great part about LinkedIn, is these newsletters. Like, if you even just have a content you want to put on there, you put up a newsletter, and then once you send it out, it actually goes into people's inboxes. So it's really powerful. It's not just on their feed. So I think that's a really interesting aspect that LinkedIn offers. And then if you're on Instagram, there's ways to be introverted on Instagram. Katie Hill, a referral partner of mine, she has found a way to market her business. She does a lot of digital organizing with and like systems with alternative health and healers. And so she, I see one picture of her in this little like, sampling, but she has some great tools like Canvas she's using and branding and marketing to help her establish her presence without having to be loud and, extroverted. So she definitely has find her path too. So anyway, we have a few minutes left. If you have any questions or final thoughts, thanks for bearing with me with all the ups and downs. And Charlie, thanks for helping with all that. The internet is a little bit more stable now, I think. So I'm just curious if there was any big takeaways that you've had from this conversation, or hopefully I've gotten you to think about something a little differently when it comes to networking. Again, feel free to add in the chat, because I know some of you probably don't want to just, it's okay. We're all in good company here. And ooh, this book Essentialism looks interesting, Charlie. I'll check it out.
Yeah, I don't want to spend time flogging somebody else's book, but yeah, it looks really good. And I definitely wrote down Susan Cain's Quiet Book. But
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
somebody who wants to say yes to everything and feels like they should. This
Mhm.
book came to me at a really critical moment in life where I realized I was shortcutting my energy for the things that I felt really mattered by telling everybody yes.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a big part of, I think it's, if you go into networking, even online or in person or whatever, you really should do some boundary setting, because it's so easy to just say yes to all these meetups and things and people, and all of a sudden you don't have time for your work, or you don't have time for your family, or the things that make you that help you reset your brain as an introvert. So I think it's really important to do that work before you go into these things, because it can just zap you, and the pressure of like, doing the right thing. It's so important to do the right thing for you. And I didn't realize or learn about boundary setting until the pandemic, and when things finally got quiet, and I was like able to like reflect, and things quieted up, and it was just almost like I could finally, that's when I actually became a birder. I could hear the birds chirping. I'm like, what kind of bird is that? I never even paused to think about that, because I was just always like saying yes too much. And so I invite you to take a break and see what it's like to have that stillness and quietness, and how you can slowly add things back into your life. And sometimes you almost need like a disrupt. I mean, the pandemic was huge, right? But that's what it took for me. Sometimes you have like sometimes it's other things, like maybe a health issue or a family or something, where all of a sudden you shake up in your life, and it kind of causes you to be like, oh wait, what am I doing? And it's not necessarily a bad thing. So here's some people are saying some things. Brandon's hosting an ND friendly co-working group that meets on Wednesdays at 8 in the AM, and a queer co-working group on the third Thursday. Okay, great, thanks for sharing that. And then Thea, it was very helpful to hear that structure and networking can be helpful for introverts. Totally makes sense. Also, shutting down FOMO and favor of self-care. Yeah, FOMO, man, I can eat you alive. It's a rough one. And then Rachel's this presentation reminded me a lot of Susan Cain's book. Living in a culture that rewards extroverts can be hard. So it's nice to be told that being an introvert has its own pros and strengths. Good. Okay, that was the point. I succeeded. I love that, Rachel. I was trying to imbibe Susan Cain's energy in this, because yeah, the world is really filtered through extroverts, and it doesn't have to be that way. And I think it started to just open up to the possibility of what can we do differently, and we're part of that movement as people that are aware. So please spread the word. It doesn't have to always be the same old way. And maybe some of you will do more of these more intimate meetups with your colleagues, and I'd love to see more of that. I think the world needs that. So we're about time, so I will let you go a few minutes early. And it was great to get to know a little bit more about all of you, and hopefully this was helpful.
Thank you so much, everybody, for attending. Thank you, Nedra, for hanging in through the technical issues. I love how the group was so great. They just jumped in and were like, "Oh yeah, let's talk about a thing." That was the last thing Nedra said until she gets back. So, thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, Nedra and Orpip.
Bye.